know he's the Shove It Man.
Here on the Shove It Show, we like to be entertained, and laughing is one way of being entertained. I do a lot of laughing, sometimes so much that it hurts. Sometimes I even cry at the same time. And that's what the aim of the video is today. We're looking at 10 gimmicks that were so bad that they're funny. But the twist here is that they have to be more recent. Let's say gimmicks that came about since the Attitude Era ended. That should rule out all the wacky gimmicks from the early 90s. I'm going to try and throw some at you that you might not have seen before. But as always, let me know if there was any that I've missed out on, so there's no need to shout on. Number 10, Christian the Crybaby. I didn't think much of this as a kid, but on reflection, wow, Christian was really bringing the energy with those toddler-like tantrums. Edge and Christian had come to an end and Christian was now a heel. He was determined to match or better the achievements of his brother, which is probably why whenever he failed, he would flop around the ring like a wacky water-wanting walrus. It almost looked like he was trying to steal Scotty 2 Hotty's finisher manoeuvre, man. It really is something that you just have to shut up and watch in awe. Then you can laugh at him afterwards. It's said that Christian wasn't popular backstage and kept whining that he wasn't getting the storylines and matches that he wanted, so they gave him a crybaby gimmick as a punishment. Vince McMahon never really liked Christian and once described him as ugly and rat-like, so you can see how Christian ended up with such an over-the-top gimmick. Surprisingly, Christian would manage to outlast this gimmick. It would have killed the careers of lesser wrestlers. Props to Christian for putting so much effort and energy into this hilariously bad gimmick. Number 9, Disgraceland. This one hasn't had nearly as much attention as others on this list, most likely because it took place in the very early days of TNA and was only for a few shows. Still, looking back, I can't help but laugh at this whenever I see this man. It was obviously an Elvis gimmick which made fun of his flaws. Disgraceland was apparently scouted by beyond boring Mike Sanders and the gifted Glenn Gilberti. How is he gifted? He was supposed to be the next big wrestling superstar and he would join their faction Sports Entertainment Extreme. He came to the ring eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and he also took breaks in the middle of his matches to eat more. Shockingly, he even won his first match, that was seemingly more intended for this character. The fact Disgraceland was pushed as the next big thing in sports entertainment, and then you just look at him and you have to laugh. Come on, why did this get TV time? Number 8, Lance Storm is boring. Imagine if this one took place in 2022. There would be riots in the streets of Bradstock. And that's what makes it funny to me, because you could easily trade the majority of today's wrestlers into Lance Storm's place and they'd be far more boring than him. This felt like WWE taking a swipe at the internet fans. Basically, Lance Storm was a great technician, but not that exciting in terms of character. So it got to a point in 2003 where Storm was about to have a match with Garrison Cade, and Austin appeared on the ramp. He was yelling boring into the mic whilst he carried a pillow and a blanket. He was here to catch some sleep because Lance Storm's matches were so boring. And this went on the entire match. I can just picture modern day wrestling fans dumping in their nappies of anger. This all led to a storyline where Lance Storm stopped trying to be so boring. He had tag team runs with Goldust and Val Venus. There you've got him dancing and entering to rap music. Honestly, it's just so funny to me having them try to force Lance into a role that's clearly not him. And I'd love to see this happen in 2022, just to get some revenge on those weird internet fanboys who would drink a cup full of horse vomit if they thought it helped out their favourite wrestler. Number 7, Damien Sandow is Liberace. Damien Sandow came off a mixed bag of results in the WWE. He had his fans, particularly when he teamed up with Cody Rhodes. He was seen by some as yet another man that WWE had dropped the ball on. He had left WWE and now he was going to prove everyone wrong. They had missed out on this guy and they were going to regret it. Because now he's in TNA, and now he's a different sexuality for some reason. Okay, first, rewind a bit, rewind. When he first arrived in TNA in 2016, he was pretty much gimmickless. He was just here to try and win the grand title, a title nobody cares about. He then took a short break from TNA of around a month. And when he returned, he now had every gimmick they could possibly find in the backstage locker room. Ultimately, he was supposed to be Liberace. He had Rockstar Spud as his chauffeur. I think he should have carried Spud in a handbag, that would have made it much funnier. He had a fluffy robe, jewellery, and he now spoke like a different person. And he was completely different to a month ago. What happened to this man for him to change? The whole concept is just so ridiculous and nonsensical. Someone must have thought the same thing because just after one match under the gimmick he was done with TNA. This was a gimmick he tried to pitch in WWE. Maybe if the WWE had done it they might have explained why he suddenly changed character for no reason. But this is TNA and they don't explain anything. It just makes me love this thing even more. Number 6, Pafana Patty. This one is 11 years ago, from 2011. This one is ages ago, it's 11 years ago from 2011. Did that sentence make any of you feel old? Well, it should. Most of you are probably so large, grey and wrinkly that you could play the part as Ric Flair's ballsack. I couldn't make today's list without an entry from the most random wrestling federation to ever exist. And yes, I still miss making those videos. Pafana Patty, I'm not even sure on the pronunciation. They were fake strongmen copying those guys from Family Guy. According to Jimmy Rave, they were supposed to be taxi drivers, so it's a David Young gimmick. But they didn't do anything that resembled taxi drivers. They had some of the worst entrance music I've ever heard in all my time watching wrestling. It was just a bunch of random noises playing. They would do random squats and dance around, and they also used the same finisher as the Bushwhackers. It was so strange seeing people like this in a wrestling ring. They looked so out of place. But I guess they would have had a place 50 years prior. They were just two angry strongmen. They didn't even look strong. So what was the point? These guys were known for having a terrible attitude backstage and pretty much upsetting everyone they worked with. A laughably bad gimmick. Number 5, the Zombie. This one was not funny, but funny at the same time. When fans heard that the WWE were going to relaunch ECW in 2006, there was some optimism. After the WWE held the One Night Stand pay-per-view to a good reception, it was possible that the TV show could still be good. The new ECW show got picked up by the Sci-Fi Channel. As it was a kind of wacky, spooky kind of TV channel, they made demands that ECW have something to start the show to display their continuity with their new TV network. ECW worked to start the show with an alien of some sort, but the network disagreed. The decision was made to have a zombie instead. As it roared and walked to the ring, fans were instantly annoyed. It felt so out of place and stupid. Why was it a zombie lumberjack? But it wasn't enough just to have a zombie here. He must also have a match against the Sandman. The zombie was played by wrestler Tim Arson. He passed away in 2015 at the age of 38 by an undisclosed cause. Anyway, he walks out at the Sandman like a zombie would walk, but he walks straight into 1,000 cane shots. The Sandman wins with the right Russian leg sweep, but the main randomness was that entrance. The pure shock of seeing a zombie appear on an ECW show which was supposed to be like adult entertainment. What a joke. And 18 years later, I can see the funny side of it now. Number 4, Stuttering Matt Morgan. Mike Morgan is someone who always had potential to make it far in the wrestling business. He had size, a decent look, he was intelligent and pretty athletic for his size, but he never seemed to be capable of stringing all those attributes together and becoming something bigger. Morgan originally seemed to be pretty normal upon his WWE debut in 2003. He was a big young guy who didn't have much to say for himself. His matches were sporadic and he didn't have a gimmick. After one of the many disappearances back to developmental, he returned to SmackDown in April 2005. But now something was very different. He had developed an extreme stutter, and this thing was completely out of control. There was no rhyme or reason to it. I just love watching this back and seeing Morgan struggling to say his own name whilst he looks like he's exploding on the inside. The people interviewing him always look so confused, and it's just bizarre seeing a guy this size acting this way. He would also accuse jobbers of laughing at his stutter before matches, which made him mad. For the pure randomness and strange casting decision of having the giant Matt Morgan have a severe stutter, I love this thing.
Matt Morgan.
Number 3, Jeff Hardy in a monologue. This one's from TNA. It's from around 2012 onwards where TNA pretty much let Jeff Hardy have full control over the things he did. I think they were scared of losing him, so they just let him run wild. Jeff's a creative guy, but he's also very wacky, and there were several things that could only come from Jeff Hardy's mind. It's a good time to mention Will-O-the-Wisp, who was Jeff Hardy dressed as a wasp screaming and cackling into the camera. But we're not talking about that today. A lot of you have seen my Jeff Hardy in a monologue clip where he complains about people stealing his Swanton bomb.
Dude, I was watching the WCW show the other day, man.
Unfortunately, I have to inform you that I did not invent the Jeff Hardy in a monologue. I merely tweaked it. He never moaned about people stealing his Swanton bomb move. That was 100% Hawk. What we did get was a few random times where the video footage would suddenly slow down and we could hear Jeff Hardy's most inner thoughts and opinions. It was quite jarring. You could hear his voice whilst his lips weren't moving. As it turned out, his thoughts were nothing too deep or interesting. He sounded bored as his thoughts played out, but every so often I have to just go back and find this footage because it's so wacky and strange.
Kurt Angle's a machine. James Storm's great, but he drinks too much. Bully Ray's mind's preoccupied. He's still dangerous.
Number 2, Natalia Nightfall. It almost sounds like I'm making this one up, but I'm not. And sometimes you have to just go back and watch clips of this one to cheer yourself up. It feels like a fan has literally recorded fart noises over the WWE programming, but they haven't. Natty is a member of the Hart family, the daughter of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and she was supposed to be a pretty good wrestler. At least in terms of when this gimmick was taking place in 2012, she would have been one of the better ones. It was an ongoing joke that Natalia couldn't control her farts and dropped them backstage all the time. People would gag from the smell and be disgusted by her. The farts obviously weren't real and they were added in post-production, making it look very amateur and silly. They also had her farting during matches with the smell of her ass distracting the referee from doing their job. This farting gimmick surprisingly didn't lead to anything major for Natalia, and it seemed to only exist to make her look stupid. I find it crazy that this actually happened, and it cracks me up watching this back now. It's so dumb that it's funny. And number 1, Connor the Rat. During NXT back on the 5th season, when it was more of a reality-based show, there was a wrestler called Connor O'Brien, but you all know him as Connor, one half of the Ascension tag team. That team who were a rip-off of the Road Warriors. But we're not here to talk about any of that, because whilst that gimmick was wacky, it's not wacky enough for this list. Vince McMahon felt that Connor needed a gimmick, so he came up with one. Connor started to refer to himself as a rat. He stuck his goofy teeth out and ate cheese from the floor. He also kept telling us he had a rat tail, but I couldn't see one. After a mini feud where he lost to Ricardo Rodriguez, he was eliminated from NXT, and he left the show in the only way that a rat could. He crawled under the ring. I couldn't believe what I was watching. This type of thing felt so out of place. It was a couple of decades out of place in 2011. Unfortunately, not many people got to see this insanity because not many people would have watched this show in the first place. Right, that's it. I had a right laugh making this list, but let me know if I missed any out from recent times. I don't want to see no Bastion Booger Gobbledygooker suggestions. If this was a list about the 90s, we would have been here all day. Let me know any gimmicks that you can look back on and laugh on. So that's the list. I hope you get the gist. And if you don't like this video, you won't be missed.